this is the reason that the conversation stopped, because a fast approaching siren wailed to its crescendo. The great doors of the prison yard were pushed back. So, wailed means it made a loud cry. So, a car was approaching with the police siren, and that was gradually reaching its peak. Crescendo means something reaching to its higher peak. So, the sound was getting louder and louder as the car was approaching, and it reached the prison yard, and the main gate was opened, and a white police car, you can see in the picture, squealed to a jerky halt beside them. So McLeary and the governor were talking about where Evans had gone. At that time the police car came inside, and Detective Superintendent Carter swung himself out of the passenger seat. So, again, Detective Superintendent Carter, the new character, out of the passenger seat and saluted the governor. "What the hell is happening, sir?" And turning to McLeary, "Christ, who has hit him?" So now Carter comes here, but McLeary cut across whatever explanation the governor might have given. So McLeary was not, indulging into a long explanation. So he just said Elsfield Way. That is where we can get Evans. "Officer, I know where Evans." He was breathing heavily because he was injured. McLeary blood was dropping from his forehead just some while ago, and leaned for support against the side of the car, where the imprint of his hand was left in tarnished crimson. Crimson is the reddish hue. So you can see in the picture his hands were covered by the blood, that flowed out of him profusely. That is what we know till now, students. So he balanced himself with his hands, and there was the imprint of his hands on the car. In bewilderment, that is in awestruck condition, in surprise, Carter looked to the governor for guidance. What? So Carter was feeling clueless. "Take him with you. If you think he will be all right, he's the only one who seems to know what is happening." So the governor says to Carter that, "Carter, there is no time to explain. You just take this person with him, and he is the only one who seems to know what is happening." Carter opened the back door and helped McLeary inside, and within a few seconds the car leaped away in a spurt of gravel. So within a few seconds the car leaped away. The car moved out of the prison yard. "Elsfield Way," McLeary had said, and there it was, starting up at the governor from the last few lines of the German's text. So the governor was recapitulating. McLeary had said Elsfield Way. There it was, staring up at the governor. "From Elsfield Way, drive to the Headington roundabout." Where, yes, of course, the examinations board was in Elsfield Way. So the governor is trying to recapitulate. For a time being, he was in a bewildered state. He could not reach a conclusion. Only one fact was hitting him, that Evans had escaped, despite of such strict vigilance. Yes, of course, the examinations board was in Elsfield Way, and someone from the board must have been involved in the escape plan from the very beginning. The question paper itself, the correction slip, everything was pre-planned. So the governor was trying to, just sum up everything, the whole thing, how Evans had escaped, why McLeary was pointing to Elsfield Way, because from Elsfield Way they can reach the examinations board, and how in the examinations board some accomplice of Evans was there who was helping him right from the beginning, and everything was pre-planned. The governor turned to Jackson and Stephens. "I don't need to tell you what has happened, do I?" His voice sounded almost calm in its scathing. Scathing means cutting, sharp, making a sharp wound. Contempt means disgust. So the governor's words were full of disgust and they were very sharp. They were insulting and sharp. Okay, his voice, it was profound and deep. He was irate with the fact that despite so much of a strict vigilance, Evans had escaped. And which one of you two morons was it who took Evans for a nice little walk to the main gates and waved him bye-bye? So which one of you two morons, okay? He escorted Evans and thought him to be McCleary. I want to know. It was me, sir, stammered Stephens. Just like you told me, sir. I could have sworn. What? Just like I told you, you say? What the hell? When you rang, sir, and told me to. When was that? The governor's voice was a whiplash now. Whiplash means very sharp and humiliating and enduring, like a sharp lash, like a sharp belt. So Stephens had just now told that it was governor who called him, and that is what we know too. We, the readers, who ordered him to escort McCleary out of the cell, and Stephens could not understand what was happening, and the governor was clueless because he never called and instructed such things. So everything was pre-planned. There are people of Evans everywhere. You know, sir, about 20 past 11, just before. You blithering idiot, man! It wasn't me who rang you. Don't you realize? So he's saying, sir, about 20 past 11, it was 11:20 when you called me. I moved away from the cell and I went to pick up the call. Jackson called me. So it was 11:20, past 11, just before. You blithering idiot, man. Okay, so he is just, feeling very, very depressed and angry. He was raging with anger. He was furious. You blithering idiot, it was not me who rang you. Don't you realize? But what was the use? He had used the telephone at that time, but only to try unsuccessfully once more to get through to the examinations board. So remember, somebody, the assistant secretary, called from the examinations board and told him that they will be giving a warning call 5 minutes before the examination was going to end. So at that time, he was trying to get through the examinations board. He was continuously trying that it's almost time. At that time, he was trying the examination board, and there was a hoax call to Jackson in the D wing, and it was told to Stephens to escort McCleary to the main gate. And by the time they had done whatever was needed, he shook his head in growing despair. Despair means sadness, dejection. He shook his head in growing despair and turned on the senior prison officer. As for you, Jackson, how long have you been pretending you have got a brain, huh? So he is furious, the governor. He just cannot think how Evans can just fly away from under their nose. So many officers, so strict vigilance, so many precautions and provisions. And now he's scolding the senior officer who is supposed to be in charge of the D-wing. I will tell you something, Jackson. Your skull is empty, absolutely empty. It was Jackson who had spent 2 hours in Evans's cell the previous evening. And it was Jackson who had confidently reported that there was nothing hidden away there. So it was Jackson who was given the charge to see whether Evans had nothing at all, he reported, and yet Evans had somehow managed to conceal not only a false beard, a pair of spectacles, a dog collar. Conceal means to hide. A pair of spectacles, a dog collar, and all the rest of his clerical paraphernalia. Clerical paraphernalia means clerical details. Other such stuff. Everything was there intact, but also some sort of weapon with which he had given McCleary such a terrible blow across the head. I just cannot tolerate it. So he was feeling angry that how is it possible that He had kept everything under their nose, and Jackson reported that everything was fine and clear. He had nothing. So he was feeling dumbstruck. He was angry. He was clueless that how can it all happen. And he found out that people of Evans were placed everywhere. A prison van backed alongside, but the governor made no immediate move. He looked down again at the last line of the German. To the Headington roundabout, where you go straight over and make your way to New Graben. New Graben? Where on earth? New something, New Grave, never heard of it. There was a war grave somewhere near Reading. So you see, he was once again going through the lines. As McCleary got it that he has moved towards Elsfield Way to the Headington roundabout, and then there was such names which doesn't exist. There must be something. There was a war grave, but there is no new grave. So he was becoming more and more confused. No, it was probably a code word. Or then it hit him. Newbury. God, yes. Newbury was a pretty big sort of place, but... So then he thought, no, it cannot happen. There must be some signal, some code. And then, okay, bingo. Okay, voila. So he found that it might be Newbury. He rapped out his orders to the driver. Send Aldeth's police station and step on it. Take Jackson and Stephens here. And when you get there, ask for Bell, Chief Inspector Bell. Got that? So who is Chief Inspector Bell? He is the Chief Inspector of St. Aldeth's police station at Newbury. So he called Chief Inspector Bell and he told him and that he's sending 2 officers and blah, blah, blah. He leaped the stairs to his office 3 at a time. Got Bell on the phone immediately and put the facts, everything before him. We'll get him, sir, said Bell. So Bell said that if he is at Newbury, we are surely going to catch him, sir. We'll get him with a bit of luck. The governor sat back and lit a cigarette. So he was utterly distressed. He was clueless that how can Evans just fly away from under their nose? He can escape from such tight security. So he was depressed and he lit a cigarette. Here, gods, what a beautifully laid plan it had all been. What a clever fellow Evans was. Careless, leaving that question paper behind. But then they all made their mistakes somewhere along the line. Well, almost all of them. Then the governor thought and understood that it was a very clever planning. That question paper and all those, signal code, Newbury, Headington, Elsfield Way, all were fake and false things just to mislead the police into some other direction. And that's why very, very shortly, Mr. Clever Evans would be back inside doing his once more. So he thought that is the reason the phone on his desk erupted in a strident burst. Strident means suddenly. Okay, erupted in a strident burst, and Superintendent Carter informed him that McCleary had spotted Evans driving off along Elsfield Way. They would got the number of the car all right and had given chase immediately, but had lost him at the Headington roundabout. He must have doubled back into the city. So you see, Detective Carter called the governor and informs him that they had spotted Evans, but they were unable to catch him. But the governor by this time had understood everything. The question paper was a twist, was a fake thing. All the informations in the question paper were there to mislead the police to Elsfield Way, because Evans never went towards the Elsfield Way. Why and how? Let us see. No, said the governor. No, he is on his way to Newbury. He explained his reasons for believing so and left it at that. It was a police job now. not his. He was just another good for a giggle, gullible governor. That was all. So he now thought, let police catch him. Okay, it is his police job. He's a governor, looks after the administration of the prison. He's just good for a giggle, that is taken to be granted, gullible, somebody who can be easily fooled. That was all. By the way, Carter, I hope you managed to get McLeary to the hospital all right. So now he's telling Carter, did you manage to get McLeary to the hospital? Yes, he's in the Ratcliffe now, really groggy. He was when we got to the examination offices and they rang for the ambulance from there. And Carter informed that he himself did not leave McLeary in the hospital, but he was left at Ratcliffe, that is the examination offices. And from there, the examination offices people only called the ambulance. So Ratcliffe is the hospital, okay? And so McLeary was dropped at the examination center. From there, an ambulance was called and he's now at Ratcliffe, as informed by Carter to governor. The governor wanted to recheck because everything was clear, getting clear in front of his eyes. The governor rang the Ratcliffe to recheck a few minutes later and asked for the accident department. McLeary, you say? So you see, this is the hospital. He called the accident emergency department for first service. McLeary, you say? The receptionist asked. Yes, he's a parson, he's a minister, he's a lawyer, he's a parson. And he is injured. He might have arrived by this time. I don't think there is anyone. Yes, there is. You will find one of your ambulances picked him up from Elsfield way about. Oh, that, yes. We sent an ambulance, all right. But when we got there, the fellow had gone. No one seemed to know where he was. Just vanished, not a sign. So the hospital authority informed that yes, there was a call. We had sent the ambulance. But then when the ambulance reached there was no one. But the governor was no longer listening. Everything was crystal clear in front of his eyes. And the truth seemed to hit him with an almost physical impact somewhere in the back of his neck. So Evans had not only fooled Jackson and Stephens. It was not Stephens who escorted Evans to the main gate, but it was Stephens and Jackson and the governor, all three of them who escorted Evans to Detective Carter, who in turn escorted him to a place from where he will escape. A quarter of an hour later, they found Reverend Stuart McLeary securely bound and gagged. That is, the actual McLeary was bound and handcuffed and, tied in his own apartment in his study bachelor chamber in Broad Street. The actual McLeary never reached the prison. It was Evans's accomplice who disguised himself as McLeary and reached the prison. He had been there, he said, since 8:15 a.m. when two men had called, and inquiries in Newbury throughout the afternoon produced nothing at all. And by tea time, everyone in the prison knew what had happened. It had not been Evans impersonating McLeary who had walked out. It had been Evans impersonating McLeary who had stayed in. So you see the twists and the turns, So you see, there was no one in Newbury. There was no one in Elsfield Way. Okay, so everything was fake and prearranged. The person who dressed as McLeary and came to take the exam, was actually an accomplice of Evans, who put on double set of clothes, okay, and came inside to take the exam. And then there was a fake call made to Jackson, who called out Stephens. And by that time they just changed their clothes. He just opened the new set of clothes, the man, the accomplice of Evans, who came to take the exam. And then what happened? Then as Stephens escorted him to the main gate, Evans put on all the things on his own body, put on the grey regulation blanket again, and the blood, the false blood, and everything was prepared in that time. So basically, Evans stayed inside, and the person who was disguised as McLeary went outside with Stephens. But these people thought Evans was McLeary who was injured, and they were all focused on catching the person who went out instead of focusing the person who was also disguised as McLeary and who stayed inside. He was only Evans. So Evans did not escape. Evans stayed inside, just disguised himself as McLeary. The fish and chips were delicious.